And welcome back. As promised, we are now going to dive into working with color. So in order for us to kind of recap some of the things that we talked about, first I want to wind us back a little bit and discuss things like hue and saturation. So I'm just going to go over here to my colors, double click this, and if we look at our color picker here, and I discussed these before by looking at the adjustment layers, but now let's look at here exactly inside of the color picker. You can see in here there's this H, S, and B value. H, of course, is standing for the hue. Hue, of course, remember, is the color value. S is the saturation. You can think of that of how much color it is, or how rich, or how dull a color is. B, of course, is the brightness value, the luminosity that we're looking at. And if I just drag this cursor along through here towards this bright red, you can see, for example, as I go closer and closer to red, the saturation value increases 100%. Now it's staying at 0 because we are down here at the bottom of the spectrum. If I were to move up this spectrum here, you can see that the hue value changes all the way up to until I get to the top, which you notice at that point it flips back to being 0 because that we have gone through the full spectrum. All right, the saturation value, of course, is 100%. If I bring that slider this way to the left, you'll see that the saturation value drops drastically because we are desaturating the color at that point. The brightness value goes down as I go lower in this grid because we are getting less and less light and we're going more and more towards black. So if we want a true red, we obviously want to go all the way up to this corner here. That's just something for us to kind of think about as we look into this lesson. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into making a color image. So let's say for this time with our 8x8 image, we want to make something like, let's say, a pineapple. Well, we know pineapples, they are primarily going to have probably two colors. I'm going to first off make green to represent maybe the leaves of the pineapple. So let's go ahead and kind of start it right about here. And let's go ahead and just paint some green in here to be the leaves of that pineapple. And let's go ahead and grab some, maybe like a kind of orangish tone for that pineapple. That looks pretty good. And this is going to be our pineapple base. All right, it's a pretty basic looking pineapple. Maybe we'll round it out a little bit. Make it a little chunkier here. Maybe that's a little too chunky though. So we'll take it back. All right, so let's go ahead and add some value to this. So if you remember, we can of course come right here. I can double click this color picker. Now the nice thing is you can see that it took me right back to my current one. So since I'm working with the pineapple right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through these values. So for example, just to kind of break up that pineapple, because if you think of a pineapple, it's not a single texture or color. So I'm going to actually maybe go a little bit down here, just a little darker, and maybe a little bit more towards this value here. So remember, this way is going to increase that saturation. Now, of course, this is maybe not the color I want. I, of course, can also adjust the hue a little bit, maybe get more of a yellowish tone. So there is my secondary color. So I'm going to click OK. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just kind of create a checker pattern in here, just to kind of break up this pineapple that I'm looking at. And then let's go ahead and pick the green. So I'm going to use my color picker tool to pick this green so I can pick up right where I left off. And let's go ahead and move up. Now as I move up, of course, remember that is going to increase the brightness value and is going to change the saturation value if I move to the right and decrease it if I move to the left. That looks like a pretty good shade right there. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the pencil tool. And let's go ahead and for now just fill that in. Now, of course, this looks very monochromatic, so I may want to do some shading and stuff like that. So, for example, if we use this, let's go ahead and make some lighter shades of green here. And I'm going to use that just to kind of break this up a little bit because it is kind of overpowering at the moment with all these colors in here. And I might, of course, make one that's a little bit more saturated. So we get some bright colors just popping in here maybe. We're going to hit zoom here. Did not mean to do that. And let's just go ahead and increase our pineapple. Let's put some same thing. So let's grab our color picker tool. I'm going to grab the yellow this time. And let's, of course, take that yellow and let's increase the brightness just a little bit. Switching to our brush tool. Let's go ahead and change a couple of these so they're nice and bright, because maybe the sun is shining on the pineapple, giving us a little luminosity. And we'll, of course, brighten up these colors too. Let's grab the picker. And let's go ahead and bring that one up a little bit. So we got a little bit of luminosity in there. Use our brush tool just to kind of help break that up so it's not quite so monochrome. Now, of course, at this level, it may not look quite as good, but if we look at our thumbnail down here, that looks like a pineapple from afar. Now, let's go ahead and have you do this. So I've created a first image for you, but let's go ahead and for your challenge today, I want you to challenge yourself to go ahead and use the techniques that we've discussed with hue, saturation, value, brightness, luminosity, to go ahead and change some of these different things to make some basic 8x8 color images.